pineapple. Looking very good.
No, thank you, Uncle Mark. Try again with kind words, or we're going to take a break from this conversation. We use the names that people tell us, remember? No, they are telling you who they are. You just need to use your listening ears, friend. Did they give you trouble about your new hairline or your veneers or your LASIK? No. So you can mind your own body. Got it? You actually don't need to get it. Because it's not your job to be the gender police, silly goosey. Oh, that's an inside thought. Catch a bubble, please. No. They are who they are, and we are not going to pretend otherwise because you are uncomfortable. So why don't we do 2 minutes in the calm down corner? At this table, we are respectful, so if you cannot be respectful, it is time to take up. Leave your course banquet, please.
Good morning, pineapples. Shut up, bitch. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Those who get up early get the funniest videos. You know it's true. You know it's true. Girl, you know it's true. I love you. Black Friday was second best day of the year. We were so close to getting the first best day of the year over at 4libertyshop.com. I was like, yes. Oh my God, it's like Anakin Skywalker. It's working. It's working. Is that what he sounded like? Was that Miss Rachel? LMAO? Exactly. You just know that Miss Rachel secretly wants her shows to be about that. I get so much hate when I hate on Miss Rachel, but I don't care. Miss Rachel sucks. Miss Rachel not welcome in this home. Matt Unruh says, I'm more pissed than humored. Good. I got you feeling something though, right? Got your blood flowing, huh? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. This is my shoe closet, the mud closet here, streaming live from Jefferson City, Missouri, where it's below freezing right now. Oh my God, it's so freaking cold. 24 degrees. Welcome to all of our friends. Don't forget to click that like button if you haven't already. When people like Thormock are in this show, I just feel much warmer inside, don't you? When we've got Matt Unruh, Ahow 319, when we've got people like Relaxium McGroin, Joni Rankin, my groins just feel relaxed. Top of the morning to ya. Headed to airport to fly back to snowy Missouri. Hope that your Thanksgiving holiday was good, that you didn't have any Karens giving you crap about your Coors Banquet. Because let's be honest, Coors Banquet is a delicious beer. It's pretty much the only Coors that I really can drink. I never cared for like the Silver Bullet Coors, but you put in front of me a Coors Banquet beer and baby, you got a party going. You know what I realized about the holidays is that I just love to party, baby. I'll celebrate anybody's holiday. Boys, girls, I can't help it, baby. Well, not that kind of party. Happy trails to you. Top of the McGroinin to you, AP. Well, welcome to the show. We're going to have a great show per usual. I've got some excellent guests. The topics are fantastic. We're back on topic this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the story that detonated over the holiday weekend. Baby boomers are officially sitting on $85 trillion in wealth. Trillion. Enough money to buy every avocado toast on earth and to corner the market so that millennials can never have any of avocado toast again. They could rebuild every college dorm. They could still have cash left over to buy the hope that Gen Z lost somewhere between their therapy sessions. At the same time, though, the Washington Post's dropped that story about the $85 trillion in boomer wealth. And the New York Post gave us a different story. This is Nayland Haley. He's a Gen Z kid, the son of Ambassador Nikki Haley, but instead of being a neocon, he's going for that based right-wing sort of like influencer style energy, who says that his generation, the Zoomers, did everything that they were supposed to do, but they still cannot get a job. My friend, I love you, but no, you did not do everything that you were supposed to do. You did everything that BuzzFeed told you to do. You did everything your diversity-trained career counselor told you to do. You did everything that the ignorant Hitlerite youth told you to do. What you did not do was you did not build. You did not suffer. You did not endure the molten character forging hell that builds wealth in the real world. Because let me tell you, you haven't lived long enough to do it. And boomers, did they get rich because they were spiritually superior creatures to the rest of us? Were they powered by black coffee and cholesterol? They bought houses for 40 grand. They watched inflation turn their starter home into a golden ticket. They lived through rising wages, affordable tuition, and a stock market that basically said, hey, buddy, you want some free money? It sure is swell. It's the cat's pajamas. Try this new stock market thing. Buy some exchange-traded funds. Get dividends. Live cozily of the rest of your life because you will always be able to vote for the government to give you more money. Vote for yourself to get more money. We'll go to the Federal Reserve, see, and they print these things called Federal Reserve notes, see, and you buy yourself a nice house and you put it away and we turn it into the kinds of value and you tie your insurance to your work and you'll always have to work for the man, buddy. Right, buddy? Gee, buddy, sure is swell. Meanwhile, millennials are wedged between these two groups. The millennials, wedged between these two groups like the middle child of a dysfunctional national family therapy session. One side screams, you're entitled. The other side screaming, you had it easy. And the truth is, nobody wants to admit how much luck and timing matter in this country. But we're going to talk about it anyway because somebody has to play adult in this conversation. Has anybody else noticed? I'm a geriatric millennial, but have you noticed that I'm 44 years old? Around this time in life, you feel you have to kind of be the adult in the room in some ways. It's kind of like you got your real geriatrics who are over here and they're giving you hell about this or that. And they're kind of like, starting to like, all right, it's like you got to scream you got to remind your wife, scream at the top of your lungs when you speak to dad, right? And then you got the kids and it's like, scream at them because they're being an idiot and they're, and they're demanding and they're talking like this.
About your new hairline or your veneers or your LASIK. No. So you can mind your own body. Got it? You actually don't need to get it. Because it's not your job to be the gender police, silly goosey. Oh, that's an inside thought. Catch a bubble,
God.
please.
No, God, please, no.
So between having to scream at grandpa at the top of your lungs and having to listen to bitches like this with their lectures, catch a bubble in your mouth. Catch your fist, bitch. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate a birthday. It's not a cute birthday or a sentimental birthday. We celebrate the birthday of our Silicon Valley overlord, ChatGPT. 3 years old and already more productive than every federal agency combined. No more Googling. No more, how do I reset my router? No more, what is the debt ceiling? Right now, people type it in to their AIs, help me robot, and hope the government doesn't ban it. 800 million people now use it weekly. And I will tell you the truth, I use it every day. You can practically hear the AI sparks flying in the background of this show. But let me warn you, if you use AI wrong, it melts your brain and potentially makes humongous mistakes that can get you in big, big trouble. So, ask somebody a question, they stare at you like a dog hearing a clarinet. But if you use AI right, if you combine it with skill, curiosity, hard work, and the ability to tell the machine, no, that is stupid, then it can turn you into a force of nature. So today, we're going to talk about how to stay AI-proof in a world where automation is licking its lips like Biden seeing ice cream cones. So later, we're going to be joined at 8 a.m. Central by the one and only John Miltimore, who's been knee-deep in a massive immigration fraud situation in Minnesota. And let me tell you, the stories that are coming out of that state make the DMV look like a Swiss watch factory. Forged documents, coached asylum trips, entire underground markets operating inside a broken immigration system. John Miltimore is going to lay it out this morning. And of course, he's from Minnesota, so that's a big story. Trump was asked about their governor, Tim Walz, who his own Health and Human Services Department in Minnesota threw him under the bus over the weekend. We'll get to that in just a moment. Here's what Trump had to say.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find offensive or retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think
You
that...
have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country.
Yeah, it's where the pirates are coming from. Somalia. We send money to Somalia so that they can hijack our ships and be like, I am the captain now. Right. Yes. So I love that this reporter, smoking hot, by the way, of course, that's the only way she got on that airplane, asked this question. Do you stand by the fact that you think that it's, that you called Tim Walz retarded? He's just like me. You can say the R word, but can you say the F word? Can you say the F word? The F word, what is the F word? You know the F word. Can you say the F word? Well, you can say the F word, but can you say the N word? I'm not supposed to say any of these things. Don't say the R word, the F word, the N word. Which words are you not allowed to say, right? Defending free speech has always been something that we've done over here. Just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean that you should, of course. But at the end of the day, if the threat of violence or the implied threat of violence is behind whatever word someone is saying, then, I mean, you know, you're kind of talking about what's the difference between that and, say, fighting words. Like, fighting words? I'm going to kick your ass. Bop, bop, knife hand? I don't know. What do you guys think? Send us a text at 573-319. 1586. That's 573-319-1586. BB for Liberty says, I want to flat out hear him say Tim Walz is retarded. Typing it isn't good enough. Yeah. It is much better. It's definitely a word to be said. Retarded. People do get offended, and I get angry text messages from people who do not like it when I say that word. And I have to say, to me, it's not about like, you know, trying to bring someone down who is suffering from real mental instabilities here. It's a way for us in society. I mean, aren't the words the most powerful words? Aren't they the most interesting words? Aren't they the words? And is it that they should just be held in esteem? Do we put them in a glass bottle, never to be used? Do we overuse it to where it falls off and then it's no longer even a slur or what have you? It's a long discussion and debate. Decorum and norms and mores and morals and how we speak to one another. These are all questions that are to be debated. And thank God the First Amendment protects that freedom of speech. Rockcut says Somalia's estimated inbreeding is at 47%, according to a study I found. Not good. Yeah, I was watching a Gavin McInnes on Joe Rogan clip from years ago about that same topic. I'm not sure how much of that is true. You know what it is with me, Rockcuts, how I operate? If I read something and it's everything that I want to hear, or it sounds like something that might be trying to confirm a bias of mine, I instantly question it. I get skeptical because I get burned. If I post something online and I've got 107, however many thousand followers, if I post something online, you better guarantee that I'm going to get fact checked immediately. So I made it always a habit that if I'm going to say or do something, it's going to be fact checked or verified, because nobody wants to be proven wrong and look stupid, obviously. And secondly, truth does, of course, matter. We're going to talk to John Miltimore this morning about the Somalians and Tim Walz getting thrown under the bus. And then we're going to bring in our geopolitical firebrand, Mailyn Salabarria, because Venezuela is heating up again. Trump reportedly told Maduro to leave the country if he wants to protect his family. Venezuela is retaliating by shutting down U.S. airline routes. The Caribbean is buzzing, planes, boats, claims of American strikes potentially incoming. Mailyn is here this morning. She's going to talk to us at 8:30 a.m. Central Time about the situation in South America. I'm looking forward to hearing her thoughts on that. Again, she will be here at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in that, in the Venezuela story, the international intrigue, that'll be at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Apparently, Venezuelans are posing with plastic food to show how great their early Christmas that they're celebrating is. See here. There's no audio on this. Oh, look at that. Did you see that little fake eat? It's a strange thing with government propaganda. She seems to know how to pose to the camera, so she's definitely familiar with this concept here. But here you have the government propagandist doing the job of the communist regime. There's no food in communism, but they all see. Here you have the government agents back there. You have ensuring that the propaganda is well coordinated. Notice something about the food. Here we go. Here's the girl. Oh, look at her. She faked eating that. That's the best part of that video right there. They've got wooden forks and wooden spoons. They can't even afford forks. Look. Hold on. Here we go. See this poor girl. She's like 15 years old, 16 years old. She has no idea what she's supposed to be doing. She thinks that she's going to be in an important video. And here, that guy right back there, that's probably her father. And he's probably like some low level regime apparatchik. And he's, doing his job, saying what Maduro wants him to say. And then you have his poor daughter. She's probably going to get sent to a camp for this. Poor girl. Because look, she failed her first acting job. She puts her plastic fork on the plastic bread or whatever item it was. Look at this, and puts no food. She brings it up to her mouth. Look, oh, poor girl. They're gonna kill her. But look at that fake food. What the hell is that? And then you got his wife, poor. They must be like local leaders in Venezuela, because otherwise, how would you afford that Botox right there? And the rest of these people standing around, I mean, they're making them celebrate Christmas early. I shit you not. This is how stupid and evil the communists are. They're making them celebrate Christmas early, so in order to show to the United States how wealthy they are, how things are fine and good, that we can have Christmas early in this country. Girl, you can't even afford a piece of bread. It's so sad. Look at this. This is a plastic toy from a kid's kitchen. Yes. But this is what they want to tell you. Now, whether you're pro overthrowing the regime or anti overthrowing the regime by the United States, no matter where you stand on that issue, these people are human beings and they don't deserve to suffer under these communist regimes. These people, these little girls, they didn't have any choice. Maybe the mother and the father, you could say at this point, they've tolerated for this long. They choose to be a mouthpiece. Maybe they don't choose to be a mouthpiece. Entirely possible that the mother and father are also being coerced. But let me tell you that this evil, murderous, heinous, socialist, communist regime absolutely does deserve to be overthrown. I don't care who does it. If it's their own people or if it's our people, at the end of the day, nobody over here is going to shed any tears for Nicolas Maduro, okay? Let's get it straight. But we'll debate the ins and outs, the ups and downs. We'll share our stories. We'll talk to someone who fled communism and survived and made it to the United States and became an American citizen, Mailyn Salabarria, at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. God bless America. This is a great show. You're going to get a little bit of everything here on the Wake Up America show. So if you're, say, from the Isle of Alderney, like Southcott, then you're going to get a great show, because we are going to talk about some of the ins and outs of American politics, of course, but we'll also talk a little bit about some of that international intrigue. So all of that today, Mailyn Salabarria at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, and plus the bonus content unlocks when the ticker hits $100 for the mini documentary. Let's do it, guys. I'm serious when I say that those holiday shipping deadlines are coming down to the wire. And I am not going to, we gave up so much money in discounts over the weekend that I was kind of like, for like a 2 or 3 hour period, we were getting so many sales. I was like sitting, I was kind of sweating. I was like, but you know what? I was seeing some of your guys' names coming in on some of those purchases. So I was like, you know what? Let them have it. You know, this is kind of like a gift that we give. Some of these things we made just like the tiniest of margins, but hopefully it all comes out overall. The Wake Up America shows For Liberty Shop. Holiday shipping deadlines for apparel is the 11th of December. But if you want something really nice, something that's really, you're not going to get anywhere else, then I highly recommend that you guys get those orders in as soon as possible, save for like our heart bracelets and necklaces. The We the People engraved cutout heart necklace is a beautiful piece of jewelry for the Liberty lady love in your life, or maybe for yourself. I'm sure it's not the type of thing. It could be unisex, I guess. But I just think, you know, Stephanie would really love this for Christmas. I know, obviously, because she designed it, but the 1776 engravable heart cuff bracelet is actually my favorite because it's more feminine. It's just a beautiful gift. And if you buy it during the live stream this morning between 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, then those purchases go to unlock that bonus content. We have 3 phases of bonus content, which is $100 for our mini documentary, $150 to play the Great Grift Off to win prizes from the shop, and $200 gets you a Christmas carol sung by me. And today it's a solo, baby. I don't have anybody else to force to sing along with me. So go to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Tell us where you are on the map. You can see with our globe that we have pulled up right here. If you pop onto the site right now to forlibertyshop.com, that's the number 4libertyshop.com, you'll show up on our map. I bet you that we could get Paul Southcott from the Isle of Alderney. Can anyone point out where Alderney is on the map? No, you can't, because you're mostly Americans, aren't you? Where is the Isle of Alderney? I'll give you some hints. This is as close in as I can get. But the Isle of Alderney, where is Paul Southcott on the map? Paul can show us if he goes to forlibertyshop.com right now. We'll be able to see his little dot, and he will show us where he is in the world. Wouldn't that be cool? Any other international friends? Nobody in Venezuela. You can see him popping up on the map here all across the country, here in Texas, Georgia, New York City. That must be Quest Fanning, or New Jersey. He's in Brooklyn. Got a couple of Texas. We got somebody in Georgia. And, of course, me at forlibertyshop.com right there in Jefferson City. Thanks so much for supporting the Wake Up America show, by the way. Make sure you get those purchases in forlibertyshop.com and during the live show to help unlock the bonus content. All right, guys. So today we're talking about wealth, entitlement, artificial intelligence, immigration fraud, and foreign policy. So let's wake the country up. Let's do it. Gen Z thinks that they did everything right. Boomers think they earned $85 trillion. So good morning, guys. Grab your coffee. Let's get this going. So this has been driving me absolutely insane. This is a perfect collision of entitlement and delusion from 2 generations that could not be more different, but somehow both believe that they got robbed. Here's the news hook. So the New York Post interviewed Nikki Haley's son, Mailyn. He's a 24-year-old Gen Z conservative, and he said the line that set the internet on fire, the line that every millennial heard and immediately rolled their eyes so hard that they saw their own childhood trauma. So here it is. My friends graduated with great degrees from great schools, and a year and a half later, none of them have a job. They didn't do anything wrong. They did everything they were supposed to. That's what he said. Everything that they were supposed to. No, they did everything that their guidance counselor told them to do. They did everything that the college brochures told them to do. They did everything that TikTok told them to do. They did everything except the one thing every generation before them had to do, which is to grind for 20 to 30 years, build skills, build careers, build businesses, save money, invest early, and actually accumulate wealth the slow, boring way. So yeah, they did everything but that, right? Everything but that. I mean, that we did everything right. It makes me feel like my scalp is like peeling backwards, right? Because this is the clearest possible proof that our culture has sold young people a fantasy, right? They really believe that adulthood should work like ordering a Starbucks latte. You do the steps, you wait 30 seconds, and the universe hands you a reward. That's not how life works. That's Hogwarts. Beam, 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 beam. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. I think those are both wrong, actually. So wrong. Gen Z is pretty clueless. When I was a kid in the 70s, my boomer parents were buying houses at 10% plus interest. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Good morning, SeaWorld girl. My little pineapple. Vocational school for 1 year and have a career for life. If I want a side hustle, I'll bag groceries or post pics on Only Feet. College means nothing to me. Yes. Stephanie and I went out on a hot date this weekend. We went and saw a concert and went out to dinner beforehand. And I met a man who was serving us dinner, and he was working there with his daughter, his young daughter. And I was just thinking to myself, God, I hope that Hazel wants to work with her dad one day on the family business. I bet she'll want to as well. I want to teach her how to make money, how to sell products, how to get out of the grind and have to work for the man and go to some communist institution, learn how to be a good little Hugo Chavez, learn how to hate America. No, thank you. I think I'll just take my daughter to work and teach her how to run a business. Then my kid can tell your A student what to do. I don't want to teach my kid how to read and write. I want to teach him how to manage kids who read and write. So this is not Hogwarts, right? Where a magical spell is going to give you everything you want. You don't get a job because you have a degree in political science with a minor in complaining about capitalism. You get a job because you become good at something valuable. And that takes years. Sometimes it takes decades. But here's the paradox, because Gen Z feels robbed because the boomers did not face the same obstacles as they did. And on that part, they are not wrong. The boomers did not grind in the same economy. They did not deal with the same inflation. They did not deal with the same debt or the same housing prices, the same wage stagnation, student loans, the same collapsing middle class, the same everything, right? Because the boomers won the greatest economic lottery in human history. So let's get into the data, right? The Washington Post reported that baby boomers currently hold more than $85 trillion in wealth. That's not normal. That is not cyclical. That is not they worked harder. That is historically unprecedented. So boomers represent about 1/5 of the population, and they own more than half of all stocks and mutual funds in the United States. And what is the one part of the economy that always does well? The stock market. So think about that. Half of the equities in America are owned by one generation. And the kicker is this: they started out as one of the poorest groups in 1983. But what happened? Well, government happened. The Federal Reserve happened. 40 years of artificially suppressed interest rates happened. The longest bull market in world history happened. Housing exploded. Stocks exploded. Wage growth was actually real. College cost the price of a couch. A house in 1976 cost $42,000. Today, the median home is $410,000. In the Northeast, it's about the median home is $800,000. They bought Apple. They bought Apple before Steve Jobs had a beard, right? They bought houses before houses became luxury goods. They refinanced when mortgage rates dipped below your blood pressure. And they did it in an economic environment that rewarded every decision that they made with compound growth. This is a survey from a site called Go Banking Rates. The average American has about $246,000 invested. Okay. Boomers have $472,000 on average. So nearly double. Gen X has 311,000, millennials 173,000, Gen Z has 32,000. So boomers started investing later than everyone else. They still beat everybody else because the game was rigged for them to win. They had more time, they had cheaper assets, they had rising wages, they had defined benefit pensions, they had stock appreciation that made millionaires out of middle-class line workers. So yes, boomers are financially blessed, but let's be honest, many of them have also convinced themselves that the blessing was purely the result of moral superiority. So you kids don't want to work. They don't want to save. They buy too much avocado toast. They buy too much coffee, right? They don't know sacrifice. Okay, give me a break. Would you sacrifice if your home cost $40,000 and your wages grew every year? Would you sacrifice if you could pay for college with a part-time job? Would you sacrifice if you had the Fed blasting rocket fuel into the stock market for 40 years? Do not act like your wealth came just out of pure grit, or it came from a historic asset bubble that the politicians pumped up, and it was created based on pure policy alone. So now let me turn the cannon around again. Here we go in a different direction, because Gen Z needs this, right? You are not oppressed because you followed the rules in your 20s. Nobody's life is supposed to work at 24. My life did not get interesting until 26, 27 years old. That's when things really started to fit together. Just in a small way, things started to come together. Nobody's supposed to have it all a year and a half after graduation. That's not how adulthood works. Everything that we get is a challenge. Everything that we get, it comes from sweat and toil and struggle and learning how to make more out of an hour than you did the day before. All right. So when boomers were 24, they were in their second year of their factory job. They were eating bologna sandwiches and saving money because the interest rate on a savings account was 7%. They didn't think that they were supposed to be CEOs before their first oil change. But the Gen Z attitude, we did everything right and still didn't succeed. This is the direct product of a culture that worships instant gratification. They want results without putting in any time, mastery without repetition, wealth without building anything. They want respect without achievement. That's not how adults have ever done it. And here's the truth. Both generations are right about the failures of the system, but both generations are wrong about who's to blame. Boomers benefited from once-in-a-lifetime conditions. Gen Z suffers from once-in-a-lifetime obstacles. Millennials like me lived in the middle of the earthquake and the aftershock, right? We watched the boomers get rich. Then we watched the housing market explode just as we entered the job market. And then we watched the job market collapse. And then we saw Gen Z get depressed because life didn't come with cheat codes, right? But the answer is not generational envy. It's generational clarity. If you want what the boomers have, you have to do what the boomers did. You have to buy assets. You have to invest long-term. You might have to work a boring job and get some skills. You might have to start small businesses. You might have to risk, and you might have to fail at your first small business and then try again. Try a different small business. You might have to build wealth slowly. You might have to ignore all the noise and get off of social media. You might have to get your foot in the door somehow, somewhere, some way that other people aren't trying. The reason why I almost never didn't get a job, most of my job interviews were formalities. I don't come from money. I don't come from power. I don't come from any name in Missouri. Nobody, people, there's a billion Petersons out there. But I pretty much almost always got every job that I went for, and it's because I'd never followed the rules that everyone else was following. I have never played by the game that most of my classmates were playing. And here's the thing, when I say never, I mean, in high school I did. I'll say this. Most people who knew me growing up would say, Austin was a good boy. He's a church-going boy. He's a choir boy. Never did anything wrong. Was a good, solid, good boyfriend, loved his girlfriend, was loved his family, did the best in a bad situation. But you know what I learned from all that? I learned that the people who follow the rules, you know what they get? They get screwed. Life destroys you. If you think that playing by the rules, we did everything right, that was your problem. I was just reading a study over the weekend, actually, about this. People who follow the rules always do the right thing. The kids who always follow the rules, it doesn't necessarily get them ahead. Always do the thing that you've been told to. Always follow the rules. Baby, don't break follow the law, but break the rules. You might have, I'm not advocating for going to jail here, but do not follow the rules. I stopped following the rules because after high school, I realized that doing the right thing, when I say doing the right thing, I should put it in quotes. What is doing the right thing? Because it's the wrong thing if you're being like everybody else. With people, they just prized conformity. I saw it in everything. And I saw so many of my students. But once it's kind of like being in the Matrix and you finally wake up, you come out of the Matrix, or being a prisoner in Plato's cave. There have been many times in my life when the scales have been removed, when the cataracts, the glaucoma has passed away. The foggy lens is no longer foggy. It's like you go in for the eye test and then boom, all of a sudden you realize, oh, maybe I do need glasses. Oh, gosh. Listen, young people today are capable of greatness. I believe that young people in this country are bright and creative and resourceful, and many of them are fast learners. I've hired a few of them. But you have to kill the fantasy that the world owes you a smooth runway. The runway was never smooth. The boomers got lucky because they built the runways before the government put toll booths on them. So, yes, younger Americans will have to build different paths. Hansi J says, some hills must be died on. That's true, but not every hill necessarily. Some hills, not every hill, but some hills. But yes, good point there, brother. And good morning to you, Hans. Beautiful name. My grandfather's name was Hans. So young people, they got to build different paths to get ahead. Digital businesses, side hustles, online stores, low overhead entrepreneurship. The only reason that Stephanie and I have been able to get to the point now where we can get to a store that had a Black Friday day that was the second best sales day of the entire year, the only reason that we've gotten to this point now is because we couldn't afford to start a brick and mortar in the beginning. We had to sell boxes of coffee at a certain rate till we could get to the point where we could start to sell coffee at a discount for volume. And we do. Not for long, guys. Those sales aren't going to last forever. I'll tell you this right now. I was talking to my AI last night. We're going to talk about AI this morning. And it was saying, you're giving away too good a deal over at 4libertyshop.com. So if you are a fan of our Founding Flavors coffee, I'm going to tell you right now, you better order it by the end of the show until I can get back to that discount that I put back there, because I think it's too much. I'm not joking. This is not a sales pitch. It is, but it's also not. Because if you're a fan of Founding Flavors coffee, Jeffersonian Java, you better go over there now and click for your one-time purchase if you must, but subscribe if you really love it, and choose, do you want ground or whole bean? But if you want to put in more than one, you're going to get an incredible discount. And that discount is eating me out of house and home, says my AI. I'm not kidding. Let's unlock the bonus content, guys. I don't see anything pinned. Have we raised $0? That's unheard of.
No! God,
It's Christmas time, guys.
no!
Christmas time is here. Let's help unlock the bonus content. Head over to 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Head on over there and buy some Jeffersonian Java. That is the number one best-selling all-time product at 4libertyshop.com, and there's a freaking good reason for it. Let me tell you. Look at these 5-star reviews. Cecilia, Kyle, Ethan, Timothy Spitzer, Andy Huberman. I don't even know some of these people, honestly, but they love it. They decided to F around and found out. We're not paying for these reviews. These are verified reviews. Timothy Spitzer, I decided to F around and find out, he says. He's an everyday coffee drinker This coffee from AP for Liberty made me feel as American as rooftop Koreans with M14s defending their property in LA. I've been subscribing to BRRC coffee for a few years, and I like their quality and price. But Austin's blends are a legit, enjoyable alternative, and the funds go straight into more entertainment and education for me anyway through his show. I recommend it on all fronts, and I'm planning on trying all the flavors. Today's the day, guys. Let's unlock the bonus content. Add them all, including the Red Cup Taxation is Theft travel mug. Add it all, and you'll see the discounts add up in your cart. Want to save even more money? Use the code BUY2 GET 15. That's BUY2 GET 15. The coffee savings are automatic if you buy more than one box. And my AI says, Austin, you need to reduce that. People are going to pay the price, so just get rid of this coupon. It's killing your margins. And while that might be true, I want you to try our coffee. I want you to try more than one. I want you to go to forlibertyshop.com right now, and I want you to put 2 or 3 or 4 boxes or more into your cart and just see how much money you're going to save on that transaction. I guarantee you're going to end up wanting to click buy. Check out. Let's do it. Do it now. Go to forlibertyshop.com. Put all of the Founding Flavors coffee into including our special limited time only Martha's Mint Founding Flavors coffee. Get it at forlibertyshop.com. You'll see those savings add up. And if you're already an enjoyer of the coffee, and I know you will be, make sure that you click subscribe and get it delivered to your door monthly. You crave it fortnightly. Every 1 month, every 2 months, every 3 months. And if it's like crack to you like it is to me, you can also get it every 2 weeks at forlibertyshop.com. That's what we call the hard sell in this business. All right, guys, let's talk about something a little closer to home. Everybody knows on this show I use AI. I use it a lot. You hear me joke about it. You see the clips. You know that, but while some networks, like we are for the For Liberty Network, they need 12 interns, the Coffee IV. They've got to have a Soviet Central Committee to write a rundown. I hit a button and my AI chief of staff starts pouring out pitches for the story like a fire hydrant, right? And today, my little Silicon Valley coworker is having a birthday. ChatGPT is officially 3 years old. So happy birthday, ChatGPT. And in the last 3 years, it has done something that no other technology has ever done this fast. It has changed how we humans think. It's changed how we learn, and it's changed how we look things up. It's changed how we work. It's changed how we create. Axios reported and said it perfectly that these 3 years felt like 30. It certainly has. Now, the question, of course, is, has AI amplified us, or is it atrophying us? Because let me tell you what the data center says. I guess the question that we're asking in this. So are we outsourcing our expertise to the machine and then forgetting how to think? Well, difficult question. I'm probably never going to learn how to code or be like a Drew Van Runkle in the chat. So if I have the AI write my code, am I atrophying from learning how to, do I need to learn how to code? Do I need to spend hours and hours and hours on that one very important task, which I can outsource to the AI? I wonder what Hans EJ has to say about that. It says Skynet must be completely and totally eradicated, crushed, and fine powder. The only problem with that, Hans EJ, is that every time you crush Skynet, everybody keeps demanding another movie. Like this time, make it gay and put a woman in it. Drew Van Runkle says, I've gotten past my try to have AI do everything phase. I use it as a tool when needed. That makes a lot of sense, Drew, although I have been experimenting lately with AI automations. And while it has not been able to achieve what my dreams are in terms of automations, I think part of that is actually my own fault. So there are some things that I have to learn still. That's the hill that he dies on, says Hans EJ. Well, hell yes, brother. We hope that you win the fight against Skynet. So imagine, though, your CPA doing your taxes in 6 minutes, right? Because the AI is going to get better, right? It's not going to be able to do all the things that they're promising now, but it's going to get better. It's going to get stronger, right? So we are moving into a world where you can draft a 30-page contract almost in under a second. But according to Stanford and Better Up Labs, workers now spend about 41% of their time checking and fixing the AI generated content. So, womp womp. Womp womp womp. The AI generated content that we have is often hallucinations, right? So on the one hand, AI is a supercharger. On the other, it's a toddler with a marker and an open wall, right? You get speed, but you pay for quality control. And if you get lazy, then you end up sending your boss a memo written by a fog machine. So this is the tension: amplify or atrophy, right? So I use AI constantly to run this show. It helps me pull the news. It helps me storyboard segments. It helps me keep track of the merchandise. It helps with thumbnails, outlines, technical fixes, scheduling, Discord integration, Shopify automation, Zapier triggers, everything, right? If you saw what I do behind the scenes, guys, you would think that I hired an army of ghost Harvard grads that are working for me for free. And here's the truth. I had to learn the hard way. If you delegate everything to AI, then your own brain starts to soften like bread in the rain. You wake up one morning and you realize you've become the manager of a machine, not an actual creator, right? You become the guy who signs the checks, but not the guy who knows how to swing the hammer. And so this is the biggest risk is that humans will stop fixing AI and start depending on AI. And then once that happens, you lose your edge, you lose your craft, and you lose your skills, right? A manager who delegates every concrete task eventually forgets how to do those tasks, and the skill atrophies, right? And that brings us to the next big point from the research, is that AI does not make amateurs great. So you can't just take someone who is an amateur, give them AI, and all of a sudden they are suddenly a god. But it does make experts unstoppable. And I think Andy Opperman over in the chat, who's helping us to unlock that bonus content this morning by buying some founding flavors. Thank you, Andy. But AI can make experts like Andy unstoppable. I think that he wrote over in the AI course that I teach over at the shop that it saved him something like 15 hours or some crazy 16 hours, some crazy amount of work. Andy took my AI for Creators course over at forlibertyshop.com. He says that taking this class has allowed me to apply a force multiplier to many of my daily tasks. Tracking the value of this course is easy. This week, I saved 16 hours of tedious labor thanks to the know-how that Austin has shared. Real value, real time back in my week. Thank you, Andy. AI is magic. Austin is an arch wizard taking apprentices. Yes, it's an unbelievable value for what I charge to teach you. If you're an expert, I can teach you incredible, powerful tools to use for AI. Now, if you are an amateur, it might be more of a struggle, right? College grads are struggling to get hired right now because they don't stand out in a world where AI can generate plausible mediocrity on command. Basic writing skills, AI has that. Basic research skills, AI can do that. Basic design skills, AI can do that. Basic communication, AI can mimic that, right? What it cannot mimic is judgment, right? That is why in many fields, the least experienced workers are always the most vulnerable. So their skills are the easiest for AI to replicate, and their judgment is too new to quality control what the AI spits out. So let me tell you something that is not in the Axios article that this was based around. AI is not replacing humans, right? AI is replacing humans who act like AI. So robotic workers get replaced by real robots. Creative workers, actual creative workers, disciplined workers, entrepreneurial workers, they get superpowers. So let's turn to ChatGPT's effect on search, because The Conversation had a fascinating report this week. This is a story from theconversation.com. In 2022, if you needed an answer, you Googled, right? Today, you talk to ChatGPT first. This is not me saying this. This is backed up by Pew, AP, several multi-billion session search analysis that have been done. ChatGPT is now the front door to information for millions. By late 2025, there will be 800 million weekly users. That is 165 times faster growth curve than traditional search. So 13 million Americans now use generative AI as their primary search tool. And this is a revolution. Make no mistake. This is a revolution in how humans retrieve information. Google's biggest fear has finally happened. People do not want lists anymore filled with ads. They want explanations. They want synthesis. They want the just tell me the thing answer without clicking 17 affiliate-laced articles written by someone who barely speaks English and takes a half an hour after all of the ads to tell you what it is that you're trying to get for the cookie recipe or whatever. And I get it. I mean, Google has become like Times Square, everything. ChatGPT is like the quiet professor's office, right? But this has consequences, because if ChatGPT is the new front door to knowledge, then humans must learn how to ask good questions, right? Prompting becomes a literacy skill. Curiosity becomes currency, right? Expertise becomes the armor that protects you from being manipulated. This article that I was reading to share with you this morning on the Wake Up America show talked about the danger of zero-click culture, that people see the summary and then they never click the source to find out where that came from, right? They never read the article, right? They never see any contradictory evidence. They never learn the nuance, right? That is a problem, right? You're not supposed to get your worldview from a single paragraph written by a robot. So let me tell you how I use AI to avoid that trap. I use my AI as a scout, not as a replacement, right? I tell it to find sources. I tell it to check the dates. I tell it to pull the facts, but I read the stories myself. I craft the arguments myself. I write the script myself. I maintain my skills, because if I let AI think for me, then the show that you are listening to just becomes a parody of itself. And then why couldn't the AI just take my job? What do you need me for? There's plenty of AI podcasts out there. Eminem says, I use it to make me sound like less of a bitch. Here's a nicer version of your email. Good to see Decision Points here this morning following along, as well as Barney Styles and others. It's nice to see everyone. Don't forget to click that like button if you haven't already. The like button is totally free to support the Wake Up America show, but Rumble rants are better. The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money. Head to forlibertyshop.com this morning during the live stream. As I get older, I'm getting more and like I'm whistling my S's. Boy, don't you hate that? They used to drive me crazy. I used to work for Bob Barr in his 2008 presidential campaign, and he always did those whistly S's, and just like fingertips on the blackboard. I love you, Bob, but call me Bobby. Bobby, baby. So I treat AI like an assistant, right? It's not my brain. It's not my judgment. It's not my voice, and it's never going to replace me, right? And that's the message that I want young workers, old workers, and everyone who's in between that to just to try and understand that AI is not something that you should be afraid of, right? But also it's not something you can worship, right? Master it. AI rewards the curious. It rewards the skilled. It rewards people who ask better questions. It rewards the person who knows how to build something real and uses the machine to accelerate, not substitute. AI punishes the people who want shortcuts. It punishes people who never build the fundamentals. It punishes the entitled. It punishes the copy and paste crowd. The bottom line is that ChatGPT turning 3 is a story not about robots. It's about responsibility. We can amplify ourselves or we can atrophy. We can upskill or we can become obsolete. We can get lazier or sharper. The future is not going to be written by AI. The future will be written by people who know how to use AI without losing themselves. That's the country, that's the America that I'm fighting for. A country of creators, builders, thinkers, and free men and women who use tools without becoming tools. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. John Miltimore will be joining us live in 5. We're halfway to that bonus content, guys. Go to forlibertyshop.com. Get those Christmas purchases in right now because I can't promise holiday delivery for every item past December the 10th. December the 11th for apparel. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. When we get back, Minneapolis, ground zero, one of the most overlooked immigration crises in the country. Trump says he will deport. Ooh, I see somebody over at the shop has got an active cart. Ooh, what could it be? We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America Show, and you're watching the 4 Liberty Network.
Look, not all t-shirts are created equal. Some just sit there. Others start conversations. The ones at forlibertyshop.com, they raise eyebrows, win arguments, and occasionally get you banned from PTA meetings. Whether you're repping freedom, mocking tyrants, or just making the left squirm, we've got the gear that says what you're thinking. Loud, proud, unapologetic. Grab yours today at forlibertyshop.com because your shirt should speak louder than your neighbor's bumper sticker. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers, pronouns are mandatory, and Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense, but you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the
Speaking of the Somali community, President Trump is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy. And as you heard Senator Kelly say, this president has cut a lot of inspector generals. He's cut programs that could help us tackle this on. So we'll take it on. We'll put folks in jail. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your religion is, your color. If you're committing crimes, these are programs that were meant to serve students with autism, to housing, and to making sure people had enough to eat. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top, lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to live. People are taking advantage of that. They're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better. But that's Donald Trump. It's time for us to be a little meaner. And when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the shit out of him back. What we should demonize is people like Elon Musk. Although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news.
Oh, interesting. Good morning. So don't demonize the innocent immigrants. Demonize Elon Musk. Demonize Donald Trump. Demonize our enemies, not the people that are voting for us, that we, of course, not the people that are defrauding us. Good morning. Good morning. Minnesota is quickly becoming ground zero for one of the most overlooked immigration crises in the country. In the last week, state officials have flagged a growing pattern of asylum and visa fraud schemes tied to document mills, sham marriages, sound familiar, identity swapping, and exploitation of the overwhelmed social service programs. Joining us now to discuss is somebody who knows a thing or two about Minnesota, eh? John Miltimore joins us live here. Happy Turkey, post-Turkey Day.
Hey, good morning, Austin. Good to be with you, man.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us again, John. We always love Mondays with Miltimore. What's happening in Minnesota? How widespread is this immigration fraud problem right now compared to previous years?
It's a big deal. It's not like one of the things you go to the grocery store and talk with other people about, but this is arguably the biggest story in the country right now. Tim Walz is under fire. Even the New York Times is getting in on this. They didn't just, cover this story, but they laid it right at Walz's footsteps and at his doorstep, I should say. If you listen to him, it's a very political answer, right? He takes no responsibility. He said, I take responsibility for putting people in jail. We know fraud happens, right? Like this is nothing new. I'm sure you can find fraud in all 50 states. This was fraud on a scale that was shocking. It was shocking to media professionals. It's shocking to politicians. It's certainly shocking to the people of Minnesota. This was happening under the governor's nose. And what's most alarming about this for me, and I don't think this has got enough attention, is people were blowing the whistle on this for a very long time. People were reporting this. This was not a secret. And everything I read suggests to me that Walz, they wanted to know, they didn't want to uncover this, that they knew this was happening, but didn't want this to become a story. It is a story. I think it's going to be very damaging for Walz's presidential ambitions, which he does have. I have it on good authority. He thinks he's presidential timber. We have to ask ourselves, why did this story, become such a big hit? I think that is part of it. I think this is, some people who might be vying for that themselves kind of help make this a national story. Walz is going to try to blame Trump as much as he can. And if you see him on Twitter, he just keeps, lambasting Trump for everything. But this story is not going to go away.
I'm reading a tweet from the Minnesota Department of Human Service Employees. The Minnesota DHS says Tim Walz is 100% responsible for this massive fraud in Minnesota. Okay. Wow. And they went on. I can't read it all, but the New York Times and the Minnesota Department of Human Service employees throwing the governor under the bus. Your take?
No, I was trying to find out exactly, what that account was. If it's some disgruntled conservative employees, I think they're correct. I guess that's what it comes down to. I think this is Walz's scandal. He can try to pass the buck, but this is a problem. I think governors need to own. Everybody today, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Ron DeSantis was in Florida, everybody wants to be president, and they're not looking at some of the problems in their own states. This is horrible governing. You need to be able to address these things. We're talking more than $1 billion. This is not, that's a lot of money for a state the size of Minnesota. And there were all the warning signs that this was happening. You have, I know people in political circles here that talk to the U.S. attorneys. They say they do not have enough manpower to keep indicting. The fraud goes on and on and on. They'll never be able to indict all the people involved in this. They're trying to get the biggest fish, which is what you can do. But this is a massive scandal, and they knew how to put pressure and leverage on bureaucrats, which is very interesting. Like they said, we're going to accuse you of racism. We're going to make your life very difficult. They knew the pressure points. This needs to be a national story. People need to understand, how this scam worked, and in how in other states, people can get worked over in this way. It reminded me, Austin, a little bit of how, if you go to the UK, you had those grooming scandals for years, right? I don't know how much you've looked into that, but I think there was a level of fear over there that people would be accused of being racist if they brought some of these immigrants to justice, if they blew the whistle. So what you had was a pattern of just covering up that behavior for a very long time. That's what was going on here. It didn't happen over decades. It was over a period of years, but this was known, and it was a story that people didn't want to cover. If you look at the Star Tribune, the local newspaper, right, they still will not touch this story. The only way they've touched it is in a sympathetic way. I used to work in newspapers. I have a lot of respect for the role media is supposed to play, holding officials accountable. The Star Tribune wants nothing to do with it, either out of fear or because they're just beholden to walls.
Wasn't there a part of this story that the community sued over racism claims because there were investigations into the fraud that was going on, John? So, I mean, that's more than just a legal issue in the United States. That's a cultural issue as well, because the left has terrified so many people into silence because we are all, nobody wants to appear like they're a racist. And meanwhile, they don't care. They'll be as racist. Their communities can be as racist as they please. Their communities can say and do things, whatever they want, and any pushback on them is considered racist. Here's Ilhan Omar.
We have more guns in this country than we have humans.
More guns than we have humans.
One of the things that's going to be important is to create a registry. So we know where the guns are. We can know when they go into the wrong hands, when they're stolen. And we can actually start a buyback program. I know that some of the Minnesota legislators have had that legislation, and that's something that we should be
Yeah. There's a member of the Somali community saying we need a gun registry in this country so that they can eventually institute a mandatory buyback on the federal level. I'm sorry, John, but libertarian, not libertarian, I don't give a shit. Deport.
There are people being deported for this on that temporary, program.
Should somebody like that be allowed? Should someone like that be allowed to serve in the House of Representatives, John, in this country?
You're talking about Representative Omar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's a citizen, right? Like, I don't think there's any temporary status for her. She has a right to an opinion like anyone else. I think it's a bad opinion, but you don't deport someone for bad opinions.
Well, what about the scandal involving her, the same type of fraud that she allegedly perpetrated? That's the normal fraud that is at the center of this, which is the brother marriages. If she came to this country on a sham marriage, you think that she should be allowed to serve in the United States House of Representatives?
I haven't looked into those accusations if they're true. If she committed fraud to get in the country, there's certainly, that is a fair question to ask. Yeah. I don't know if that is something that's been verified or not. I see a lot of, it's hard to tell today what's real and what's not on the internet, right? And you don't have time to go look into every rumor. But if she lied on her immigration documents and that can be proved, yeah, I think that's certainly grounds for not just her, but for anyone. But then you get in the problem too, like if are we targeting people for their speech? Are we just looking into people because they're saying things we don't like?
It's like if I say I'm coming to take your rights away. I'm coming to take you over. I'm coming into the gates. I'm going to tear down your constitution. I'm going to destroy your way of life. Then I think that you can go after somebody for their speech. If somebody is threatening you and threatening your rights and threatening your liberties, that's exactly what you do. And you don't play nice, you play dirty, and you play to win, John. You play to win. Yeah, I think.
Here's like Jordan Peterson is a Canadian. If the next administration decides they don't like what Jordan Peterson's saying and they decide to deport them over that, I have a serious problem with that.
You should protect people. You should protect your ideological kin. You should protect the people who are trying to protect the way of life that you and I advocate for. You should fight against the people. It's like this redistricting battle in some ways, right? What are we really talking about here? Like, what's the libertarian principle involved in gerrymandering or district making, right? The left is playing to win. They just added 5 more Democrat House seats in California. So here in Missouri, we get a chance to lose a Democrat seat. You think I'm not going to take that opportunity to win? This is a knife fight, John. These people, they're playing to win. They're going to, what principle are we holding ourselves to that we allow someone like Ilhan Omar to take our rights away, to register our guns and take them away? The principle of defending our rights to our firearms is more important than her right to sit there and say that. It is.
I would say the First Amendment comes before the Second, right? And maybe there's a reason for that. We got to think about what kind of society we actually want to create. And I get it. Like some of these positions, I will fight tooth and nail because I think they're seeking to come between me and my liberty, right? Like, and that matters to me. And I would like to see her defeated. If we are going to start to deport people based on the things they're saying, like that is a very serious matter. I'd rather live in part of this comes down to not, libertarian or conservative or progressive. What kind of values are we going to have? What kind of values do we want to have as a country? And that means living in an open society where people can say these things without fear of getting deported.
Look what the open society has given us, John. It's given us that fraud in Minnesota. Is that the price of liberty?
No, I think that's bureaucracy.
That is the price. That's the price of the open society that the Minnesota taxpayers are paying right now.
Do you believe that, though? You think that's the open society is what gave us that program?
Yes, I do. I think that by allowing these people, and it's the people that it's like the public trough, right? When the taxpayers, when you have a democracy, when you have the system that is the open society and the open system that has allowed these people in, the enemy into the gates, and now electing them so that they can advocate for these things, to advocate our rights and our liberties. I think that we've allowed it in. I think that to some sense, it is important for us to be exclusionary, John. You cannot enter our society if you're a communist, if you're a socialist, if you're a Muslim terrorist, if you hold radical ideologies. You should not be allowed to come to the United States. No,
well, that's a separate question. I think that is an important question. Like what. We can agree. Let's start somewhere. Should we have an immigration policy that says who comes into the country? Now,
yes.
I think there's a great number of libertarians that say no. Like anybody that wants to come here can come here. I'm not an open borders libertarian. I think that we should say who gets to come in and who doesn't. The numbers of that are open to debate. But I think as a country, you should be able to decide who comes into the country, and then that opens the next question: who do we want here? Like what kind? I think we should be selective. I think we should be bringing people into the country that are educated, that are going to improve our country. I think this idea that we should just import randomly or import find the neediest people in the world and bring those people into the country. I think we should have a discerning immigration policy. That said, once they migrate. Once they're here, they need to have the same rights as you and I.
But what if they committed fraud to get here?
That's it. There you go. Like that goes back to where we were. I think if that's up to the Trump administration. If they think they have a case, and they said we're going to review your work and we're going to find out that you committed fraud, I wouldn't be kicking and screaming over that. I think we need to have a federal policy that holds people accountable. If you're coming here and you say no, I have no criminal record, and you get here and we see that you have all kinds of felonies in your record and you've been here and deported, yeah, you need to go away. And if you lied, said you were married or married a relative under false pretenses.
John, if you were the president of the United States and you had 2 caravans headed for the United States of migrants, and and you only had time to stop one. It's a fun little theoretical. Okay. One is coming from Venezuela, and the other caravan of migrants is coming from, we'll say, let's pick a country at random, Japan. Japanese migrants all the way. They sailed past Hawaii. They're making it to California. You can only stop one. Would you stop the Venezuelans or would you stop the Japanese?
I'm not going to answer a little silly hypothetical like that. I do think part of the problem we have these caravans coming is because of our own immigration policy.
Why not? Why won't you answer that question, John?
I mean, you're asking me to take like a preference on who is better. Tell me who's on that. Tell me the people on that caravan.
You got to deal with the law of averages.
Are they
John, you got to deal with the law of averages, John. You got to trust your gut on this one.
I don't play
Commander
that way.
in Chief.
I don't like to see the world that way. I think it's very silly to look at people by their nationality.
You know what? Because you want to live in a pie in the sky world, John, of libertarian
I don't
theory.
think that's the case.
Yes,
I think when we have an immigration policy,
you don't want to have to deal with the difficult challenges that people who are actually in the real world have to deal with sometimes.
You're the one giving me a hypothetical about caravans from Japan, for God's sakes. This isn't me being pie in the sky. This is you being pie in the sky. I would say let's look at people individually that are applying here. This is a very, what have you done? What's your education? What's your criminal record? Those are things we should be looking at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But if you had to choose, John. Okay. We've got, speaking of Venezuela, we're going to talk to Mailyn Salabarria here in just a few minutes about the escalating situation in Venezuela. Drew Van Runkle says, Venezuela, they have the fun drugs. So is Minnesota a preview of what the rest of this country is going to face if these federal immigration policies don't change, though? Because, John, the rest of the country is looking at your state and going, what the hell? And the Democrats want to turn the rest of this country into Minnesota, no doubt.
No, it's funny. I hadn't thought about this in years. It wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I've thought about this, and I've long said, when an immigration policy needs to serve its people. And I had a child in the hospital. This would have been probably 8 years ago, and went down to Martin Luther King Children's Hospital downtown, and we were in there for a few days. And one day, I'm like, I got to get out. I'm feeling cooped up. I need to go find a coffee shop. So I'm looking on my phone. I'm like, well, gosh, there's not a Starbucks around here. And my wife, there's one down there on Franklin Street. And I'm not, I live in Minnesota, but I don't get downtown a lot. I decided to walk to the coffee shop, and it was like I stepped into another country. And that whole street on Franklin, I look, and all the buildings are, abandoned. You had community centers, like some art project that the state funded that was, I don't think it was even open. It was shuttered. And all these young males are hooting at me on the street. And it was very threatening. I'm just walking, trying to find a coffee. Never did, by the way. And finally I just detoured and I walked all the way down to the IDS Center downtown. I just kept walking but it was rather terrifying. And I'm like, I have no idea that this close to me, that it was like stepping into a different country. And I would say things like that matter, right? Like you have a responsibility to citizens to say, we're going to have a responsible immigration policy. And what we had was a population that was dumped in Minnesota, and they weren't, you can hear my accent on that. and what they did is, I don't entirely, this isn't even about the people necessarily. The system. We had a system that they were put here and said, okay, go on, and a lot of them, went on welfare. A lot of them learned the habits. Like this fraud case, they learned, wow. This is how you play the game. We can get millions and millions, this way. So they were in some ways just our system helped encourage them toward this, and it has been really, I think if you went back 50 years and showed people Franklin Street, what I saw 10 years ago in Franklin Street 40, 50 years ago, they would have been just saddened, right? Because it was so run down, and that was a product of people who said, oh yeah, Minnesota, take a huge population of people, it'll all be fine. It wasn't organic migration either, right? This was from Washington. We're going to take a large population, put them here. And this is a separate topic, but this whole idea of assimilation came up recently. And I was debating with someone on this. You can't even suggest that to people anymore, the idea that they should assimilate, because it's looked at as like, no, that's neocolonialism, to make them adopt your values. Well, that was always part of the American, I won't say the American dream, that was part of the bargain, right? Is that you came to America, you adopted the language, you assimilated. That expectation is gone. And in fact, to even bring it up now, we're looked at as like evil or something wrong with us for suggesting other people should.
The older I get, the more experienced I am, the more I look at what Robert Heinlein wrote in some of his famous novels.
Brilliant writer.
And it was this concept that citizenship meant something. That when you talk about assimilation, that they had to adopt new mores, they had to adopt new norms, they had to adopt a new ethical standard by which they must live. And if they're not willing to do so, then they're not welcome, I think, should be the opinion. It's important for us, John, to remember that liberty cannot be protected if we cannot protect private property, if we cannot protect our borders. I don't agree, like you say, with the open borders libertarians. And I do think that there is a place for a nation state. And I specifically believe that the United States is the best real world example of a nation state that is built around ideas that we all adhere to as a national community. And if they want to come from the international community to our national community, they should have to abide by those laws. And we shouldn't be ashamed of defending those things. And you know what? Call me a racist, call me neo-colonial. Just don't call me late for supper when it's time for us to head out and deport the Minnesota Somali fraudsters.
And I'm just going to go back to a word you used earlier. I've thought about this for years. I remember, in college trying to make this point to people, citizenship. Right. There's one thing, like an open society, anybody can come here, right? You can come visit. But if you look at like ancient Rome, not everyone in Rome was a citizen, right? They took citizenship seriously. And you had certain rights and responsibilities that came with that. To me, I would like to live in a very open society where people can come and go, but where you didn't just automatically become a citizen just because you happened, to get the federal form, or even things like the anchor baby issue. That's a very controversial thing. I never thought, constitutionally that argument is always seemed a little suspect to me. But this idea that you automatically became a citizen, even if your parents weren't, but you happened to have been born here. I do take citizenship seriously, and for the reasons you say, you can vote my rights away. Right, like that's a pretty big deal. And to say anybody in the world that can come here and be a citizen, and that we're just going to give that to people, I think that's you're not going to have a country very long if you embrace that kind of policy.
John Miltimore, it's always Mondays with Miltimore, and it's always good to have you, brother.
Yeah, good being with you, AP. Have a good week, man.
You too, man. Take care. Enjoy your holidays.
Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know as. Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know as. Look, Donald Trump
Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Let's head down to Chinatown. Not a Chinatown, Venezuela town. We're going south of the border. where a buildup of military strength in the Caribbean threatens to depose and destabilize the communist dictator of Venezuela. We got Mailyn Salabarria joining us live in less than 5. Don't go away. Enjoy the commercials because we're still $20 away from unlocking the bonus content. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com because you guys know that you wouldn't have seen clips like these
Insulting me is a badge
on
of
any of those mainstream media channels that you would have been watching. Instead, you watch the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Head to the gift shop, buy some coffee.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. The situation in Venezuela heating up. They're celebrating Christmas early with their... What is that? Is that food? What an odd... Wait a minute. What is she doing? Putting a fake food in her mouth and faking... What's going on down in Venezuela? Is Donald Trump about to topple the socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro? Latest news is that Maduro is headed for the border. Is he on the run? Sharing with us her opinions on that right now is a Cuban expat. She fled communism, came to the United States, became an American citizen, and now contributes to the For Liberty Network. Here's Mailyn Salabarria joining us live here on the show this morning. Good morning, Mailyn.
Hi, good morning. How are you, Austin? Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday from the trenches of being liberated Latin America. I didn't sleep last night, and I think it shows.
We lost your video camera there for a second, Mailyn. If you could turn it back on. There we go.
There we go.
Leave it on for us so we can see your beautiful face. There you are. So President Trump has told Maduro that he has to leave the country to, quote, save himself and his family. Share with us your thoughts on that.
It's just unbelievable, but again, it's not surprising. So we have gone in the span of a week from having the usual socialist, communist theater of celebrating Christmas ahead of time with plastic food and whatnot, from Maduro being like in the proverbial panic mode, seeing that he doesn't have anyone in the area anymore, and then being put on the spot by the current Trump administration.
Share with us your thoughts on this video. Why are we watching a video here? Why are they celebrating Christmas early with fake food?
Because it's like the proverbial story of the Potemkin village. That's the history of communism and socialism everywhere that it has been put in place. It's the same thing how I grew up in Cuba with being the generations where Christmas was forbidden, and I didn't know what a Christmas tree was until Pope John Paul II visited Cuba for the first time, to the same theaters that the Soviet Union and every single communist and socialist country on the Eastern Bloc always did for the purposes of propaganda. That was kind of like their first step into this cultural Marxism infiltration into the Western world that we, your generation and mine, are fighting in the supposedly to be free countries nowadays.
So to unpack this, right, we're joined by Mailyn Salabarria here. If you have questions for her about this situation, you can drop them in the chat. Mailyn Salabarria is going to talk to us this morning about the situation in Venezuela, which appears to be escalating towards a hot conflict. Venezuela just revoked flight rights for several airlines after the United States airspace closures. So what does that tell us about Maduro's posture? And do you expect this to break out into an actual conflict, a real fight?
I honestly don't think it's going to be an actual conflict, but what I can tell you is the proverbial picture that when the ship starts sinking, you can see all the commie pigs and all the rats jumping aboard, and that's exactly what we're looking at right now. Maduro is at his ends wits, and there's several important factors that I think that your average American have to keep in mind. Number one, we're seeing signs that Putin and the Russian government is already sending charter flights to evacuate Russian operative and people out of Venezuela. I believe one of their first stops they're doing is in Brazil. As we can see from the news of the Honduran elections last night, Maduro is running out of friendly airports where to pack and ship out his rats out of the sinking ship. So that's one aspect of it. The other one is that we have like the whole lot of support in the region that we have seen in the course of this year, including San Vincent and Grenadines clown socialist president that have been in power throwing orgy parties for Fidel Castro and Maduro for the last 20 years is out of the picture too. So Maduro basically only have Brazil, Colombia with Petro crackhead that nobody knows what is going to come on social media in the next 24 hours. He has the pressure from Marco Rubio and Trump here. And then there's several important things that we have to keep in mind. We need to keep in mind, Austin, that there is actual tangible, serious national concern, national security concern for us as Americans. This is Mailyn speaking as an American taxpayer. We have the issue with the refugee crisis. I believe the last time I checked the numbers, the refugee crisis from Venezuela even surpassed the one of Cuba in 67 years now. I believe the last numbers I checked were 7 to 9 million. We have the cartels setting shop right here in the United States, like in Colorado, where I spent 20 years, and Tren de Aragua was calling the shots, even over King Police. We have the issues of human trafficking and drug trafficking. Then we have the regional foreign policy aspect of it, which is the actual need, the critical need to neutralize the regional influence from Cuba, Russia, China, and Iran. What is the spoiler that I always have in conversations with my, real libertarian friends, constitutional friends, and whatnot in the United States? The spoiler in that conversation is that those forces, China, Iran, Cuba, and Russia, are not in Venezuela looking for the recipe of arepas. So everybody needs to have a reality check here, because foreign policy and the principles of liberty that we stand for do not exist in a vacuum. They need to be connected and tied to the
Mailyn,
situation in real life.
I think I agree with you, but I think that the modern American libertarian movement definitely does not agree with you. I think that the modern American libertarian movement has really been conditioned to reflexively oppose any form of U.S. international involvement in any conflict anywhere whatsoever for any reason. And that is the dominant theme amongst the American libertarian movement, is it not?
True. And that is the same phenomenon and the same reaction and responses that people like me have when we speak with, the experts or the real libertarians or the libertarians with a capital L or even the progressive left useful idiots, is that you cannot analyze the foreign policy and the reality of places or countries like Venezuela or Cuba from the comfort of your third-world life in the United States. It doesn't work like that. We have a saying in Cuban idiom that roughly translated means that it's very easy to swim when you are out of the water. So yes, it is very easy to be a purist, principle, freedom fighter, whatever, when you're not the one that is in the ground, living 24/7 in Cuba and Venezuela and having to stand up with that. So that's what I mean by having a reality check of integrating into whatever is your vision of freedom, into what is really happening to actual tangible human beings that are in those situations. And lastly, I think that another one big important thing that we need to keep in mind with all this, again, this is just it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, is the impact and the domino effect that it could have in the entire region, because a free and democratic Venezuela, as presented, for example, in couple of weeks ago, I think it was Maria Corina Machado, she put out the Freedom Manifesto for the reconstruction of Venezuela and the return to freedom and democracy. When you look at it and you realize that once Venezuela get back into that transition and reconstruction framework with the actual legitimate president whose title was stolen by Maduro, you're going to realize that this is going to benefit the United States into bilateral and regional trade, very similar like we have been seeing with Milei in Argentina. We're going to see as an actual solution of this 7 to 9 millions of refugees, Venezuelan crisis that we're seeing not only in the United States, but basically all over the world. We're going to see like a pivot into trade and development of key industries, not only for the United States, but also for the region in Central America. We're talking about energy trade. We're talking about nuclear industries. We're talking about so many things that could mutually beneficial our region and the United States, but we need to have free markets and freedom for that.
Yes, that all sounds good. And it usually we do hear lots of promises about how great things are going to go before the intervention happens, but then usually even the best laid plans of mice and men don't always work out as we desire them to. And so I do think that there is a concern that if this conflict escalates, it should have clear congressional authorization and not just be done unilaterally through the president of the United States. If I was in Venezuela, I wouldn't care about something like that. I would just want to be liberated from communism. But I'm an American, and I'm concerned about checks and balances. Go ahead.
Definitely, I agree with that. But again, do you really think the current administration is going to be doing without whatever they're doing without having, the entire chess game layout with check and balances? I don't think this is going to be a full military invasion or operation. Again, I am the type of person that I do not support wars against, unless we're taking out commies. That's a whole different conversation. But I think the way that I see it, and this is just my personal opinion as a third-party observer, is that we're probably going to see something similar to what happened with Noriega in Panama. And I believe that the right diplomatic foreign policy pressures are being put in Maduro in a way that idiot is already in a corner and he knows he doesn't have a way out. I mean, look at the opinion piece, the editorial piece that the Wall Street Journal put out. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It's like when the Wall Street Journal editorial board is telling you that the solution of the conflict in Venezuela is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That tells us everything that we need to know about which one.
Perhaps, but I don't always get my opinions from the Wall Street editorial opinion board. But I will say that that some people are accusing Trump of having ulterior motives in this. When you talk about free trade, he's talking something that sounds a little bit more like conquest. Listen to this.
How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it. You know where the oil, their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get. Tar. It's like tar. And to refine it, you need special plants. And these people, how about we're buying?
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like he doesn't sound like he wants to buy the oil. It doesn't sound like free trade, Mailyn. It sounds more like conquest, rape and conquest.
You know what, Austin? I think that everything that comes out of our current president, I take it with a huge grain of salt. If
Probably
there's
wise.
something that, yeah, it's wise to say that we know his personality and we know that he's not the only one calling the shot with this. I mean, I will tell you that I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and again, I might be a biased source of information in this case, I think that he actually took me by surprise with the way that they have handled the whole thing with Latin America. And putting all that into the table, I will remind everybody the reality check. Let's say that the trade is not going to be a conquest. We're not in the years of the La Pinta, La Niña, La Santa Maria when, Latin America was conquered by Spain and all that. Things are different right now. So there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, the reminder that I told you earlier, even if that was the ulterior motive, again, it's not a straw man and I'm not comparing two bad things, but who do you think or what do you think China, Iran, Cuba, and Russia are looking for in Venezuela? Do you think they're there to see the waterfalls in Margarita or to get again the recipe of their arepas? No, they're not. It's basically a racing to see who dominates the region, the totalitarian leftist governments, or if we give free market, albeit not being perfect, a chance. And the second thing is the way the survivors of communism like me look at this picture, which is the way that many Venezuelans stuck right there, right now, see it too. I told you earlier, I have plenty of vague messages on my phone from friends there, is that, man, when you have been destroyed by communism and collectivism for so many years, by default, Austin, whatever comes after is going to be better. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the encyclopedia of libertarian principles. But we are in such a bad position, such a rock bottom
Mailyn,
reality that whatever comes after is going to be better.
Be careful making those kinds of things, because if there's one thing that I think humans underestimate, things can always get worse.
True, but I don't know, man.
Things can always get worse. If there's one thing, listen, it takes something that's bad, add government, and all of a sudden it's worse. So
well, that's pretty much what happened in Cuba, and you tell me how worse can it get.
I don't know. I don't know. But all I know is that well, I'm not an isolationist. I do very much believe in the Monroe Doctrine. I think it's important I do think that it's important for national security for us to guard our hemisphere. And Venezuela, of course, is in that hemisphere. And but I do think that congressional authorization, I do think that checks and balances that have been eroded over centuries in the United States should be restored, not because I want to be a pure libertarian, but because I do think that a proper system of checks and balances and congressional authorization for things that I believe qualify as acts of war should require some buy-in from the people. But I also recognize and understand that if I lived in the real world, in Venezuela's real world, I wouldn't care about American checks and balances. I wouldn't care about what their systems were. All I would care about is that someone was overthrowing my Noriega like they did in Panama. And it is a fallacious belief system that many modern American libertarians, some of them isolationists, some of them not, but they adhere to, which is to place ideology before the facts. And I believe that you should take the facts first, and that I think those facts lean towards libertarianism, but not perhaps the case, the pacifistic anarchism that the movement has really taken up in recent years. Mailyn Salabarria, you're going to have your own show here on the For Liberty Network in the new year. We're all really excited about that. Cafecito Libre. Tell us a little bit about the direction that we're planning on taking your new show that's coming up on the For Liberty Network.
Well, this is going to be one of those things where we are literally building the plane as we're flying it. But I believe the concept and the idea is just having a live, very informal, minimalistic talk show style, show 2 hours twice a week. And the whole point is not only bridge the language, barrier and communication and being able to talk both in English and Spanish about these principles of free market, limited government, and individual freedom that we all defend, but also bringing that bridge into what is the freedom movement in English in the United States and the freedom movement in Spanish in Latin America. That even though we have been under this joke of the, socialist collective, some sort of destiny for so many years in Latin America, there have been a very strong and growing freedom-oriented movement growing up in the last 20 years in the region that deserve and is at the exact point of being brought to the table in a regional and more global conversation. And that's my little goal, to have those things. And again, we're planning to do it with some sort of technology that would allow us to do the interviews and the conversations both in English and Spanish, because again, ruffling feathers in one language is not enough. I got to do it in two.
Mailyn Salabarria, where can people follow you online?
They can follow me. They can follow me mostly on X. I have a very weird last name, so you just have to put it in the search box and you're going to find it right away. And the same thing with my social media on Facebook and Instagram. It's all open to the public. Be careful with the DMs, because whatever sounds too weird is going to get deleted and blocked right away. I don't have time for that kind of drama at this point in my life.
Mailyn, we'll keep an eye on your career, and we're looking forward to seeing your new show coming out in the new year, Cafecito Libre. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Keep your eye on one thing and one thing only: how much government is spending. Because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. The thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt.
I just it's like a cold drink of water. You're just going to hear what Milton Friedman has to say. Thank you so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show today. It's been a fantastic show. We're nearing the end. We didn't unlock the bonus content phase 1. So why don't we see if we can get the mini documentary out before we end the show today? If you go to forlibertyshop.com this morning, I'll be able to see you on the map. I'll pull you up so we can see where you're visiting. Go to forlibertyshop.com right now and click on the reviews button. If you click on the reviews, if you're on a desktop, you can see it right there. If you're on mobile, you'll go to the little hamburger menu, click on those 3 lines, and click on reviews so you can see just how well Stephanie and I serve our customer base. And I don't know why we don't have silver authenticity or why we don't have gold authenticity. We certainly should, but I think there was some kind of like mix up for whatever reason. But we do have platinum transparency, which means that we publish all our reviews, even if we get bad reviews. And we do get it wrong. We've gotten some 1-star, 2-star, maybe 3-star reviews. I would consider anything 3-star or below to be a bad review. We get some 4 stars, but mostly people, they either love you or they hate you. And look, they love us. 4.8 out of 5 stars. If this was a restaurant, if you saw a restaurant and it had 4.8 out of 5 stars, then you would want to eat at that restaurant. That's very highly reviewed, as you can see. From forlibertyshop.com, you've got incredible products that you won't find anywhere else for your Christmas celebrations. At forlibertyshop.com, we have rare coffees, delicious teas, t-shirts that you can't find anywhere else that have gone internationally famous. My Shogun of Liberty Mailyn samurai shirt is big in Japan. I'm not kidding. It's big in Japan. An Argentine president. Look at that handsome boy right there. Joseph Steele says, "Keep cool with Coolidge for President" shirt is the best shirt ever. And he's right. Our Gulf of America merch for those who are maybe in a little warmer climate, and our Gulf of America towels, one of our top sellers this year. Very nice quality. They want to get more because they're so heavy, thick, and soft. A lot nicer than any of their other towels. You can only get those Gulf of America Great White Shark towels at forlibertyshop.com. So why don't you head on over to forlibertyshop.com right now. Christmas shipping deadlines are approaching. We cannot guarantee Christmas delivery for anything that's bought after the 11th at the Grift Shop. So head on over to forlibertyshop.com this morning. Make your purchases. If we manage to raise another $20 before the end of the show today, we will unlock the bonus content. However, Rumble, their creator program, now has a new system where we're supposed to do raids instead of doing live reads as part of the creator program. So I'm going to initiate a raid this morning, guys, and I'm going to invite you to go and say hello to my friend Mark Cox. Mark Cox has a Rumble morning show that's live right now. So I'm going to ask you guys to go visit Mark Cox in St. Louis. Tell him that AP for Liberty, that Austin Peterson sent you guys. We're going to do a stream raid. What is a stream raid? I'm going to drop the raid. You're going to click on the raid, visit Mark Cox, and check out his show that's live right now. We'll be right back here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Have a great day, guys. Invalid Earl for a raid, it says. Let's try again. There we go. Confirm raid. Raid is confirmed. AP for Liberty has raided the Mark Cox Morning Show, it says. Ignition sequence started. The Mark Cox, not Mike Cox. Need to raid Ferguson. Oh, is he live? Oh, yeah, we should do that. There we go. We've raided the stream. Have a great day, guys. Enjoy yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a redcoat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama!
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be